Let's say you're a fan of Nintendo or Mario Kart specifically in 2021, and I told you that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe would get 48 new courses, 8 new characters, and brand new features throughout the course of March 2022 to November of 2023. Would you believe me? Of course not! 8 Deluxe hasn't been updated in a while, Tour is still going strong 2 years in, and the next Nintendo console might be out soon considering the Switch is approaching its 5th year on the shelves. Well, when the Wave 1 trailer for the Booster Course Pass dropped on March 18th, 2022, who could possibly predict the wild ride we would go on for the next year and 3 quarters? Now that the Booster Course Pass is all said and done with Wave 6 being released, I think it's time for a little retrospective, from day 1 to the final day. March 18th, 2022. Wave 1 of the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass has dropped. I can assure you that no one could believe it. 48 new courses over the course of 6 waves? Impossible. Until you looked at the courses. I mean, Tour Tracks, 3DS Toad Circuit. If you have played or even watched gameplay of Tour, you can easily tell where most of these courses were coming from. And they were pretty much shipped to 8 Deluxe intact. But let's go through all the courses first. Starting with Tour Paris Promenade. Honestly, this track isn't that bad, but it definitely was supposed to be the first impression on what was supposed to come over the 6 waves. In retrospect, it did just that. Okay graphics, new gimmicks, tour tracks, it had it all. However, my personal thoughts on this is this. It perfectly introduces you to the Booster Course Pass well, and the first 2 laps just missing and matching from the tour variant, while the last one just does a reverse version. It's pretty well done, and perfectly introduces you to the Booster Course Pass. Plus, 8's lighting engine did a perfect job making this track look decent. On the other hand is 3DS Toad Circuit, which is probably the worst introduction to the Booster Course Pass, and an unfortunate sign of what's to come. The most plastic grass I've ever seen, the most terrible graphics known to the human species, and all around just a terrible and boring track. You know you messed up at Toad Circuit and 7 was better than the 8 version. I can't really say the same thing about N64 Shotgun Mountain, which is a definite welcome addition to the pass. The amazing layout and concept from 64 with some good parts from Tour. But I think the most important thing it did was it set the standards from now on that even tracks that were remade in Tour and older entries can make it into the Booster Course Pass, which put several fan favorites on the table like Wii Coconut Mall. Everyone must have been ecstatic. The Wii Coconut Mall? While it still looks like it's made of Play-Doh, it's Coconut Mall. Truly incredible. It's just as fun and charming as the older entries with some nice additions from both 7 and Tour. But you get into the parking lot and, are those Shy Guys? Where are the Mii's? And I just realized that the escalators are super obvious to tell which way they are going. Worst track ever! Okay, that last part probably wasn't true, but you can pretty much understand everyone's pain. A weird way to end off the opening Booster Course Pass Cup for sure. It kind of put a bad taste in everyone's mouth after this. Luckily, it didn't cause as much pain as Tour Tokyo Blur. If you're like me and thought Paris Promenade was alright, and excited to see how the changing lap mechanic would play here, you would be utterly disappointed at how boring it was. Long, boring straightaways, slow, boring turns, taking a slightly different route every lap. At least the music, while a remake of Toad Circuit, is pretty good. Though I sure do hope more tracks are exciting like Paris Promenade and not boring like Tokyo Blur. At least DS Shroom Ridge isn't boring. I don't think a single person cares about Shroom Ridge and DS, but I know a lot of people were happy it got added regardless for that music. Some of the other tracks had some pretty good music, but Shroom Ridge is just on another level. Anyway, back to the gameplay, I guess. Even if Nintendo messed up the track in some parts, like the cars going in the same direction, they made it a lot more dynamic in others, like adding a glider cut and a really cool shortcut. I honestly still think it's a good track and holds up well compared to the rest of the wave. However, I can't really say the same thing about GBA Strike Garden. It probably must have been incredibly exciting to see one of, if not the best GBA track return, but probably not in this shape. An extremely shortened layout combined with the okay graphics made this one not a good one to remember. It definitely left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. If there was one upside to Sky Garden, it would at least be the music. Anyway, hopefully Nintendo remakes more GBA tracks and still makes them good and not ruin them. Anyway, here's Ninja Hideaway. If you haven't played Tour, this probably was just any other track to you, just a fake new track pretending to be new. Well, it's just from Tour. But oh boy, it's much more. So many places to trick, more ways to go than Yoshi Valley, insane shortcuts, and an extremely dynamic and fun track to end off Wave 1. Wave 1 definitely was and still is a myth bad. Some of the best tracks in the entire series were remade, but not realized to their greatest potential. Plus, some really boring and downright ugly tracks did not make a good impression to everyone about how this boosted press was going to go. Some people were starting to say it wasn't worth it, others imagining how lazy and sad it was of Nintendo to make something like this. But hey, there's still 5 waves left to go. Before I start talking about Wave 2, I do have to mention one more thing that will shake up the entirety of the Booster Course Pass, or the BCP for short. This one thing will probably make it memorable for years to come. I'm of course talking about the predictors. People from big-time Nintendo YouTubers to your newcomers like yours truly, and other people I guess. These people try to predict everything about the Booster Course Pass. Everything from the date, each course, what order it will be in, what new tour tracks will be added to tour, and the BCP. They try to answer, or more precisely, predict every last thing. Better yet, both the BCP and tour were filled with lazy data mines left and right as the Booster Course Pass went on, letting predictors get the most accurate guesses possible instead of throwing any random course onto the block. Anyway, on to Wave 2. On July 28th, 2022, Wave 2 was announced, and on August 4th, it was released. Now, this wave was the turning point. All, or at least most of the tracks had to put something on the table to keep the Booster Course Pass relevant for the next year and a half. So, what courses did they bring in this time? Let's find out, starting with Tour New York Minute. Opinion alert, this track isn't terrible. I don't think it's that boring, as there's not usually long drawn out turns and long straightaways. It's more compact, which means less of that stuff. And if there is a long straightaway, it's usually filled with a bunch of stuff to make it more fun, and other than the last one before going to the finish line. Plus, the Broadway-esque music and several split paths makes this a pretty fun one to go through. If you disagree, I respect your opinion, but at least it's better than SNES Mario Circuit 3. Not only was this track remade before in Wii, it had 0 upgrades from that version, and it looks incredibly ugly. Mario Circuit 3 completely ruined this turnip cup for me. If we had gotten literally anything else other than this worthless piece of trash, this would have been probably one of the best cups in the entire game. At least we get back the momentum lost with N64 Calamari Desert. A beautiful return to form. Not only does it look decent for early BCP standards, it also uses a special version from Tour where you go on the train tracks. So they turn it into a semi-section track, which is pretty cool. I love Calamari Desert in 64, so seeing it get remade here is amazing. Where do I even begin with this one? It was super exciting to see a classic from DS return to 8 Deluxe with its lighting engine. I also like the slot machine part they added from Tour. It looks pretty nice in 8 engine. Plus, the track is just super fun to race on. Whether you're losing or front running, it's a great track from start to finish. Compared to Cooked in a Mall, this is a better way to end out the Turnip Cup, as they didn't really remove anything that ruins the track, so to speak, unless you're one of those people. I can't believe they ruined the sound effects at the end. Moving on to the Propeller Cup, which may very well be one of the best cups in the entire series, if it wasn't for one track. Anyway, it starts off with Tour Sydney Sprint, which is definitely a wake-up call for Tour non-believers. Not only is this track actually good, surprising I know, but it's really fun, turning really boring sections from Tour like the Harbor Bridge into some of the best parts of the entire track, while having a pretty good layout. It's just simply an amazing experience from start to finish. Even if the second lap feels a little too long for some people, this definitely put the belief in some people who didn't like Paris Promenade and New York Minute that these tour tracks can actually be good and creative, just like how GBA Snowland did the same with GBA tracks. Last wave, GBA Skydowning was disappointing to say the least, but here comes Snowlane, which roughly kept the same layout as the original, but made it pretty fun by changing the elevation here and there, making the track pretty dynamic, and adding 2 good shortcuts. Just like Sydney Sprint, this was a turning point for everyone. GBA tracks had the potential to be great tracks, and if realized correctly, can be turned into great tracks. Then comes Wii Mushroom Gorge onto the scene. Also last wave, Coconut Mall was butchered from its original version. Could Mushroom Gorge save Wii's reputation? Short answer, yes. Long answer, the track looks kind of ugly, but it makes up for it with this pretty cool cave section and the gap jump. With an extremely precise jump, you're able to make it over this gap at the end of the track with a mushroom to skip this entire turn. Being able to do something this broken with how polished it is was surprising. This completely broke the time trial scene. Along with the shortcut on Snowline, it was the start of a recurring theme with the Booster Course Pass. This cup was amazing. Getting the final to Nitro track ended off on a high note. Introducing Sky High Sunday, the new Nitro track that's definitely not from Tour. Wait, this track kinda sucks. Just an oval, forced anti-gravity, weird anti-grav boosters, 500,000 trip spots? What is going on here? Honestly, this track was made with a tour first mindset, because in tour to get good stuff, you have to get as many points as you can. You can get points by doing things like tricking or going on glider rounds. So you can see how this track was trying to appear more to tour and just be like, oh yeah, 8 Deluxe exists. I also have to mention that up to this point, every single Boosted Course Pass track has amazing music. Even Waluigi Pinball, which was just borrowed from Mario Stadium. Even with Future Waves, I have every single one of these tracks on my 300 playlist of mostly Mario Kart songs. Except for this. It just sounds okay. Why would I listen to like an okay song when there's this? And there's this. And I could go on, but we gotta move on. Long story short, Sky High Sunday isn't good. In other news, Nintendo actually went back to Wii Coconut Mall from the first wave and changed the cars so they actually move instead of whatever they were doing before. This looks like a sign that possibly Nintendo would come back to previous waves and fix stuff about them. The most clear one right now was adding a pinball sound effect on Waluigi Pinball that was in the DS and 3DS versions, but not the 8 Deluxe version. In later waves, Nintendo did not come back to fix this and other things in future waves. In the end, Wave 2 did what it needed to do, get everyone excited for future waves. Waluigi Pinball got people excited for what was coming next, Sydney Spring got people excited for future tour tracks, which we can probably assume there would be more of, Snowland showed that GBA tracks had the potential to be amazing, and the BCP team will take them there. Finally, Mushroom Gorge fixed what Coconut Mall got wrong. At the same time though, there's still things that need to be fixed. Tracks like Sky High Sunday and Mario Circuit 3 are just plain boring under-original tracks. In Sky High Sunday's case, because of everyone complaining about there being no anti-gravity in this wave and the last one, this looked like Nintendo's way of saying, are you happy now? By forcing anti-gravity onto the entire track that did not need it at all, while Waluigi Pinball could have definitely used it for better use. Plus, the tracks did not improve graphically. All they did was improve gameplay, which is a good step forward, but there's still things they need to be fixed as well. Back to the B plot, Predators just got a massive break. Before Wave 2 released, a thing called the Preface Leak got data mined, which showed what game would be in each slot of the Boosted Course Pass. And now this is extremely trustworthy as it correctly predicted the game that each and every track in Wave 2 was from. This now makes predicting future waves even easier as you know what game the track will be from. You just gotta figure out what track it will be, and you can just look at what tracks Tour has or will have sometime soon, as it's pretty obvious the Boosted Course Pass is just porting tracks from Tour to 8 Deluxe with the little changes. However, another data mine enters the scene. Introducing the Music Leak, which holds the first setting of some future tracks coming, including every single Wave 3 track. The fullest in order was Tour London Loop, DS Peach Gardens, GBA Blue Lake or Broken Pier, 3DS Rock Mountain, Tour Berlin Byways, GCN Waluigi Stadium, Merry Mountain, 3DS Rainbow Road, Tour Amsterdam Drift, Tour Singapore Speedway, Tour Los Angeles Laps, GBA Sunset Wilds, Tour Bangkok Rush, Tour Vancouver Velocity, and Wii Maple Treeway. Plus, the first 8 tracks perfectly line up with how the previously said Wave 3 was going to be like. Everything was coming together. All they needed was just for Wave 3 to be announced. On November 21st, 2022, Wave 3 got announced, and on December 7th, it got released. And thanks to a previous Nintendo Direct, there were previews for 2 tracks, those being DS Peach Gardens and Merry Mountain, both lining up with the previous leak and Music Leak. It seemed like tracks like 3DS Rainbow Road and GCN Waluigi Stadium would make an appearance this wave. Not only that, but these tracks look gorgeous, specifically Merry Mountain with the beautiful visuals and lighting seen in the previews. Then the trailer came around. This was it. It opens up to Wii Maple Treeway, but the Music Leak said it would come from Wave 6. How did this happen? Then there was no Waluigi Stadium, and most of the tracks did not follow the previous and Music Leaks. This is super surprising for predictors, as the previous leak perfectly predicted Wave 2, but what happened here? Most of the tracks were not in the right order at all. The previous leak only got what game correct. Most of the tracks were not in the right order at all. The previous leak only got what game correct, as there was still a GBA course, a DS course, and 2 3DS courses, just not the exact spot. This was the beginning of the belief that the previous leak should be the basis for predictions, but not followed exactly. But who can complain about the order being wrong when this wave is amazing? Well, except for the Rock Cup starter, Tour London Loop, and another one. Yeah, this track is just super boring. It just feels so directionless. It just makes you feel like you have no idea where you're going. And I don't mean that in a good way. Plus, the landmarks are really hard to notice, either due to their location being super off to the side or just looking like literally everything else on this track. This probably started as a reputation that the tour tracks will just be a snooze fest. Not only was Tokyo Blur and this not good, but New York Minute and Paris Promenade were not super beloved across the community. So far, the only good one was Sydney Sprint, so hopefully the rest of the tour tracks are good, right? Right? London Loop isn't good, but GBA Blue Lake is quite the opposite, only suffering one small layout change with big upgrades like adding elevation, a fun anti-gravity section, adding a lake finally, and adding a brand new finale to finish off the lap made this one a pretty fun one. The momentum from here carries on to 3DS Rock Mountain. While this track looks incredibly ugly, it's still a pretty fun track. It's a pretty dynamic track with fun, long gliding section, and a new anti-gravity section as you climb a massive cliff while avoiding boulders. If only the track looked good. As good as Wii Maple Treeway. Because in-game and in the trailer, this track just looks beautiful. It's still a little play-doughy here and there, but it looks beautiful with the orange fall leaves as you race through the tree. The remake even brought back the half pipes from Wii back. The only thing it's missing is the net bridge, which really isn't a massive loss as the gliding section is pretty fun in my opinion. It makes a pretty graceful ending to this peaceful track. Now next up is Tour Berlin Byways as the Moon Cup starter. I have no idea what the public opinion on this track is. I feel like there's so many people who love the track for the music and the track itself, while there's a lot of people who dislike it for its long and boring layout with not much going on. And I am one of those people. There's just so little going on other than the moving cars, which as always are extremely easy to avoid. There's really only a couple of actual good parts here and there, like the Brandenburg Gate, as it progressively gets more interesting as you drive through it. Even the final lap, which is by far the best, just feels pretty boring after you leave the Berlin Wall and the split path place afterwards. The only consistently good thing is the music. Well, at least DS Peach Garden picks up the lost momentum for me. Not only is this track the amazing track it was from Wii and DS, it has some new stuff like these trophy areas, a piranha plant, the track goes in reverse. Wait, what? Yes, on the third lap you take a little sideway to take the track in reverse, which is pretty fun. It makes the track a whole lot more dynamic. The fun from here carries on to Merry Mountain. This path is pretty interesting. The split path at the beginning, the slow climb to the top with a bunch of item bosses circling around a half pipe before you turn around and head back down the mountain. The downhill section is pretty boring though, with a gliding ramp on the last two laps redeeming it a little. I love snow and mountain tracks, but there really needs to be some more stuff on the downhill part. But the thing is though, who really cares about this when 3DS Rainbow Road is up next? While there's some stuff that, in my opinion, makes this worse than the 3DS version, it's still amazing that 3DS Rainbow Road is now an 8 Deluxe. Just like the original, it's an amazing journey from start to finish. Definitely an amazing way to finish off the cup. And the first 3 waves, honestly. This was also the first wave to implement more changes other than adding new tracks. The biggest one was probably custom items for Versus mode. This was literally a game changer for Mario Kart. Ever wanted to take every single shortcut or go ridiculously fast? Mushroom, triple mushroom, golden mushroom, and bullet bill. Ever wanted to make the most chaotic game of Mario Kart ever? Lightning, bullet bill, spiny shell, and whatever else you want. Do you want to become a psychopath? Coins only. Do you want to torture yourself? Spiny shells only. You can even make the item selection different for each team if you choose team races. The possibilities were endless. This was also the first wave to introduce one of Wii's key features, half pipes, into 8 Deluxe. In Wii Maple Treeway and Merry Mountain. Sure, they were a little scuffed, but this meant that a certain track that absolutely relied on half pipes was now on the table to be in the Booster Course Pass, and also other tracks that use half pipes like other Wii courses. Guess we'll see more of those in later waves. This was also the first wave to completely change the meta of Mario Kart. Before, if you wanted to go fast, it was Waluigi Riddler with roller wheels. This was the best combo of the entire game, but Wave 3 changed everything. It messed around with the balancing a whole bunch and made the best combos worse and made other ones better, like medium weight characters on the Teddy Budget with roller wheels or GLA tires. However, this wasn't the last time this would happen. Wave 3 showed that Nintendo was listening to us. They heard our complaints about no anti-gravity, so they added it to 4 tracks in Wave 3. 5 if you count it on Maple Treeway. They heard our complaints about the tracks looking ugly, so they made some really beautiful tracks like Maple Treeway and 3DS Rainbow Road, and the entire wave as a whole looked really good for BCP standards, except for Rock Mountain. Nintendo even heard about the music leak and prefix leak, so they switched up the order for every single wave from now on to keep every wave unpredictable and exciting. Or at least that's what I like to think. They made it so much harder to predict tracks. After how amazing Wave 3 was, it was just a wait for Wave 4 to see what's in store for us, and those months came by fast, for me at least. On March 2nd, 2023, Wave 4 was announced, and on the 9th, it was released.
Based on the trailer and the preview alone, this was quickly shaping up to be an amazing wave. Not only was an incredible nitro course from tour hopping over, but Waluigi Stadium and Riverside Park looked almost like base game tracks, and the rest of the wave didn't look bad either. Combine that with some of the best tour selections and city tracks from tour, you got a recipe for the best wave yet. And it all starts with Tour Amsterdam Drift, which is a perfect way to kick off Wave 4 and the Fruit Cup. Considering how mediocre the last two were for me, the colors and layout all line up beautifully to make a pretty fun track that doesn't feel boring at any point, as each lap is completely different from the one before. Plus, it looks pretty good for PCP standards, other than the flower models, but not as good as GBA Riverside Park. Even seeing this in the trailer, you know it's going to be absolutely beautiful. The outside section looked amazing with the sun in the background, while the cave section and the waterfall looked gorgeous as well. As for gameplay, there's not much elevation changes in the outdoor section of the track, but the spiral in the mountain definitely adds a lot of elevation. Then the jump out of the waterfall is just so much fun. Plus the Patuis walking around are a neat addition. Pretty fun track, just like Wii DK Summit. I cannot get enough of this track. I don't know why I love this track so much, but I feel like DK Summit perfectly captures that feeling of riding a snowboard down a mountain. Then the stringless double cup return was honestly such a crazy discovery and is super satisfying to pull off correctly. Combine that with the several spots to trick and the half pipes and you got yourself a pretty fun track. I might also like the track because the half pipes are so broken it's funny. I can definitely say Yoshi's Island is an amazing track though. Being able to race on Yoshi's Island is just incredible. I love how amazing the layout and surroundings are. It all fits together so perfectly. As for the theme itself, the best way to describe it is just one big love letter to Yoshi's Island. I mean, the references, Yoshi's face on the coins, the starting grid, and result screen theme changing. It's just amazing. It has the perfect momentum to continue on into the Boomerang Cup that starts with Tour Bangkok Rush. This is honestly a pretty good city track. It doesn't really feel boring at any point. It's pretty dynamic with some glider sections and split paths, and who can forget bouncing over the market? I don't really understand people who find Bangkok boring, because I can't find a single boring spot on the track, except for maybe the Ventral overpass area. Even then it's pretty interesting with the split paths. Rest in peace, into piranha plants. Even if Bangkok is pretty good, DS Mario Circuit just had to steal the spotlight. Everyone thought Airship Fortress was coming in this wave, but then the trailer came around and it showed Mario Circuit. I knew just about everyone was just about to call this track boring, terrible, unnecessary, and nowhere near as worthy as Airship Fortress was deserving of the slot. But after all of us collectively played, I don't think any of us could tell ourselves to hate it that much. They made some really neat changes like adding elevation, a new forest section, better graphics, and the ending is always a chaotic part with friends or online. This was a surprisingly good track, just like how GCN Waluigi Stadium was surprisingly good. Why does it look so good? I mean, I'm not complaining or anything, but they actually tried. I know they also tried on Riverside Park, but here's is a lot better. Not only did they make it look good, it also plays good as well. The anti-gravity parts are really cool, the shortcuts are usually hilarious but good nonetheless, and the lighting section towards the finish line feels so good to pull off. I think the best part of this track is the anti-gravity sections. You have to take a half pipe in a certain way to get onto them, and they act kind of like a shortcut if you can get onto them. And the final one at the end has a gliding section to perfectly end off the track. They perfectly executed the track. Just like how Tour Singapore Speedway perfectly finishes Wave 4. You may have thought, Tour City Track at the end of the Boomerang Cup, what a terrible way to end off Wave 4. Then you play it, and it's absolutely amazing. The music is a bob, the layout is super dynamic with gliding section, cannons, vibe changes, and conveyors along every corner. It's a super fun track and a great way to end off Wave 4 despite being a Tour City track. While this was shown in the direct preview, this was still a major surprise. Birdo would be making an appearance inside the Booster Course Pass. Not only did Birdo have her classic colors, but also 8 different color variations like Yoshi and Shy-Dye. This along with the custom items opened the door to other features other than just tracks, which was just super exciting. When Wave 4 released, the new column of characters where all the new characters would go opened up, and it showed 5 question slots, so it allowed predictors to predict more things about the Booster Course Pass. Wave 4 also changed the meta again, messing with balancing again and completely changing the time trial scene. Wave 4 was just amazing in every way. Despite there being 3 Tour City tracks, all 3 were amazing. The retro pits were amazing, even if one of them were unexpected, and the wave itself just looked amazing. It looked like Wave 5 and Wave 6 would hold some of the most beautiful and best tracks in the entire DLC, even topping Riverside Park and Waluigi Stadium. Back to the side story, Wave 4 was nothing like the previous league. Yeah, the Tour City and Nitro track at the end of each cup happened, but everything else got swapped around. Not only were the 4 retro spots swapped around, but a seemingly obvious DS slot, which was also the final DS slot in the entire Booster Tours Pass according to the previous leak, was taken by Mario Circuit. So now it looks like several fan favorites from DS would get cut out of the Booster Tours Pass in favor for more obscure tracks from that game, which is pretty unfortunate. I would love to see Delfino Square or Airship Fortress inside of the Booster Tours Pass, but I guess it was never meant to be. Yet, all the pieces were in place to almost perfectly predict Wave 5, so let's see what Wave 5 looks like. On July 6, 2023, Wave 5 was announced, and on July 12th, it was released. This looked like it was shaping up to be one of the best waves yet. 2 of the best city tracks from Tour would be brought in this raid. The fan favorite Sunset Wilds and Koopa Cape would make an appearance, and Daisy Cruiser and Moonview Highway would show up. However, if you played Tour, you may see this wave a little differently. Koopa Cape's underwater section was now flooded, Sunset Wilds wasn't insanely improved like the other GBA remakes, and 2 of Vancouver's variants weren't really as good as the first one. At least there's Tour Athens Dash to kick off the wave and the Feather Cup just right. I don't think I'm alone when I say this is one of the better city tracks, especially when it goes through the ancient ruins of Athens and less so the city, which makes a great change of pace from high rises and long boring roads. There's never a dull moment on this track, and the music perfectly sets in that feeling of adventuring through the historical city of Athens. We carry that insane momentum from here into GCN Daisy Cruiser. This track looks pretty good for Booster Tours Pass standards. I think my only problem graphically is that the wood looks a little plastically. Other than that, it's pretty good. However, the gameplay, I can't really say the same. I always made sure to take the left path at the start to more smoothly go through the pool section, compared to the right way. It was weird it was designed like this considering most people are right-handed. Later into the track at this part, it feels really difficult to go the normal way and not into the flooded room. Is it a skill issue? Probably. Is it a problem? No, but I'm just pointing it out. Other than that, Daisy Cruiser is pretty much the same great track as in every other prior version other than graphical and musical changes, unlike Wii Moonview Highway. While the track is pretty fun, and the boost panels through the city and them being randomized every waste is pretty fun, there's just one glaring problem. There's nowhere near enough cars, especially during the city section. If this is supposed to be a downtown of a big city, why is there only a handful of cars in this entire section of the track? Pretty sad. At least the music is pretty good though. Then, Squeaky Clean Sprint finishes off the cup amazingly well. The track does feel a little long, and at its core, the layout is just a story of some bends, but it's more than that. Jumping into the bathtub is cool, the pipe section is a tight, fast-paced section before amazingly leaping out of the drain into a big turn where the floor is slippery and a giant flan is blowing you around before gliding over a toilet, and on the last lap, a giant geyser shoots out of the toilet and onto a higher-up shelf, where you're able to take another gliding section to several different locations. It's just such a great nitro track, alongside the amazing music. It was a good end to the Feather Cup, but Tour Los Angeles Laps isn't good at starting the Cherry Cup. I used to think this track was kind of boring, and yeah, it still is, but I appreciate the set pieces more. The complete change of vibe while going on Santa Monica Beach and the skate park and the Inglewood oil field was really good, plus flying over Dodger Stadium and going through Beverly Hills is pretty fun. It's just the roads in between the actual good parts that are boring, with absolutely nothing going on. They didn't even add bumper-to-bumper traffic to make those boring parts more interesting. Outside of gameplay, LA Labs got some pretty interesting changes from its tour version. Instead of it being sunset, the time of day is now noon. I think this better fits LA's sunny weather. The music also got a change. In the original version, there were bars in the song that were removed in the 8 Deluxe version, and people did not like that change. Though I don't really think losing the bars was a huge loss when the original sounds like this. While the new one sounds like this. I'll happily take the actual good sounding but Bala's new one than the old one terribly replicating Rush Hour Traffic, thank you. Oh boy, next up is GBA Sunset Wilds. To say the least, I have some strong feelings about this track. In some of the other GBA remakes from Tour, they shortened the layout, which wasn't really that cool. But here, most of the track was removed to make a pretty basic layout. And you may expect, well, maybe they shortened the layout so they can add big ambitious things, right? The only big elevation change was the hills at the end. I don't really care. about the small amount of updates they made. My favorite part about Sunset Wilds is, well, in the name, the sun setting. It made the track a lot more visually interesting. It made it one of my favorites from Super Circuit. They even added it to the tour version. It has to be an 8 Deluxe, right? What? Well, maybe it's on the final lap like tour. So not only is the track completely unrecognizable from the GBA version, but the sun doesn't set too? Why? Looks like I'm just ranting about how terrible Sunset Wilds is now. Well, I'll continue the video, I guess. Sunset Wilds was ruined, yada yada yada. Well, at least the next track has to be good and at least improve on the original a little bit, right? We're screwed. Tuba Tape doesn't really have the best record of being ported into the next game, perfectly intact and made better than the original. It really got destroyed in 7, where a useless glider ramp and a once cool pipe set is now flooded with nothing going on. In Tour, they added a half pipe in that flooded tunnel, but made the surrounding rocks tan instead of gray. So let's see what's new in 8 Deluxe. They kept the rocks tan, unfortunately, but there's now anti-gravity inside the pipe. That's something, I guess. They also messed up the lighting here, but let's not worry about that. In the end, Koopa Tape is just Koopa Tape or worse. There's not really much to say. Why, Nintendo? Why? Just please straight! Just get it straight! Fit Sunset Wilds, please! Are you done ranting? Yeah, but my throat hurts from all that streaming. Can you please continue the video? Sure thing. Well, the next track is the ending city tours, and Singapore was good, and I heard this one is good because it's Tour Vancouver Velocity. I was so excited to finally play on this track in 8 Deluxe, considering it's one of my favorites from Tour, and I was just super excited to hear the music as well. So I load up the course, start the race, and it goes directly into the first variant, and we all know it's amazing. It's an absolute blast to race through the forest section. It's a nice change of pace from the other city stuff. It then goes over a suspension bridge that leads into a more windy suspension bridge that has anti-gravity before gliding back to the start and into the next lap. And, park, hockey arena, city stuff. Yeah, it kind of got boring. And after the lackluster final lap, I was hoping it would turn it and do the first variant in reverse or something, but it didn't. I love Vancouver Velocity just for the open beach variant, but there's not much else I like about the track. I mean, we go through the same hockey arena and area leading after it twice in back-to-back laps. And for music, it's pretty good, but I prefer this section. From the tour version way more. There is some good, however. Different colors lighting up the buildings are really cool. It gives Vancouver its own distinct feeling compared to the other city tracks at night. Even then, it's not enough to redeem this track, unfortunately. Vancouver Velocity was a pretty disappointing end to Wave 5. The wave also added 3 characters, Petey Piranha, Kamek, and Wiggler. Wait, Wiggler? 3 characters? Wiggler was a very cool addition, I don't mind them. And the other 2 were cool, but 3 characters? Why would they end the DLC with less characters than the wave that came before? That's kinda weird. Again, Nintendo messed with the meta again, it's pretty much standard at this point. Just expect the balance seems to change in this wave. There's also a random eShop icon on the bottom of the main menu now that tries to get you to buy the Booster Course Pass if you don't have it yet. With the lackluster ending to Wave 5, it kinda led me with a mixed bag of emotions. We had some of the best tracks in the entire DLC all wrapped up into the Feather Cup, but the more lackluster Cherry Cup ended it off on a rotten note. Even if some of the tracks in the Cherry Cup had massive expectations to me, it still doesn't change the fact that they are still boring, destroyed, ruined, and anticlimactic. And I think that would sum up my thoughts with Wave 5. As for the predictors, this was one of the more predictable waves. Thanks to information from the previous waves, Tour, and the music leak, we probably expected that Athens Dash, LA Labs, Koopa Cape, and Sunset Wilds would all end up in this wave. For Daisy Cruiser, it wasn't really 100% certain if it would be this or Mushroom Bridge that in this wave, but it ended up being Daisy Cruiser, which far better fit the summer vibe. So all that was left was 1 Tour slot that ended up being Vancouver, and 1 SNES slot that was Wii Movie Highway. Wait, what? This was the second time the previous leak was completely wrong about a track coming in that wave. The ones who trusted and reliable previously was starting to show its tracks, and as time went on without 3 more Nitro tracks in Tour, it seemed like Wave 6 might even be different as well. Well, hey, it's September, it's time for a Nintendo Direct that could possibly show Wave 6 news!
The final wave is racing in. Here's a sneak peek at Wave 6 from the Mario Kart Wii game, Daisy Circuit. More returning characters are also being added in Wave 6. From the Mario Kart Double Dash game, Diddy Kong. From Mario Kart Wii, Funky Kong. And from the Mario Kart Tour game, Pauline. And also, Peachette.
What?
So it seemed like Daisy Sweeper would make it into the Booster Course Pass. You know, it's a fine and welcome addition if it didn't completely mess up everyone's predictions. It went from people saying GCN Mushroom Bridge would be in Wave 6, which was a pretty far-fetched considered there's like at best 5 turns and 4 straightaways, to Wii Rainbow Road wouldn't make it into this win, which in retrospect was such an outlandish claim. Well, it would only be a matter of time until the final wave of the Booster Course Pass dropped. It was here, the final wave. Even if most of these courses were going to make it in one way or another, some tracks were surprises like Rosalina's Ice World, which I'll talk about when we get there. Rest in peace, Piranha Plant Pipeline. You were so different from Slide in every way imaginable. The track selection did throw a wrench in some people's predictions, like Rosalina's Ice World instead of Pipeline, but for the most part, everything lined up. This was the last wave, and it was surprisingly one of the most easiest to predict. I will miss the fun of predicting and seeing other people's thoughts on their predictions. I am happy I was able to predict the last few waves, even if most of them were hilariously incorrect. Alright, let's see what the final wave is all about. Starting the Acorn Cup with Tor Romavanti. This track is just simply amazing. Going through the Coliseum, through the tight alleys around the city, soaring over the traffic fountain, and being in the crossfire of a battle between chain shops is just simply a journey, all while underneath the night sky and through the beautifully lit city. And the music exemplifies that feeling. The song perfectly captures that feeling of racing through the ancient city and its tight alleys, all while underneath the night sky. The momentum from here carries on to GCN DK Mountain. In my honest opinion, I'm confused why this is fan favorite. Don't get me wrong, it's still a pretty good track, just not S tier material here. I love the volcano face as you're gliding towards it because of how menacing it is, but as you're racing down the mountain, it's not really that interesting once you get off the rocks. It just seems like turn after turn and then, oh look, we're at the end. There's some good here as well. There's a gap jump in this track as well, add another broken shortcut to the list. The visuals also look really good, pretty much rivaling base game graphics, and the music fits a jungle pretty well. Overall, I'm happy we got one more fan favorite from Double Dash to round out the Booster Course Pass, though I can go without Wii Daisy Circuit. I mean, the track list's alright, but compared to the rest of the wave, it doesn't even come close. Worst part is, the Daisy statue is still staring into my soul. Why didn't they change it at all? As for the layout, it's still fine. I don't really care for the layout that much in Tora, and same goes here. The ending is pretty fun with the boost panels and the tunnel. Other than that, it's just alright. But the final track of the Acorn Cup is the brand new Piranha Plant Cove. I also understand this is probably going to become one of the better Nitro tracks from the Booster Course Pass, but I can't put myself to like it. The layout is just fine, and all the track looks amazing in some areas, but to me it's just missing that one key element that pulls the track all together to make it amazing. Combine that with the fact that the track looks straight out of Tor in some areas, and it makes it a pretty miss bad for me. The music is a bop though, I'll give it that. At least if you like Piranha Plant Cove, I can understand it. Unlike liking Tor Madrid Drive, the Spiny Cup starter, which failed to be a good city track on all levels. I don't even know how people prefer this over some other city track. This one was just not good in my opinion. Why did it start with the amazing third variant? I mean, it was a good opening to the track, but it definitely should have been the closing one. And then the second variant was just always alright. Then it ended off on the first variant. Why? The football field was the only good part about it. It was at the very end of a boring variant. And the actual good part lasts for like 5 seconds, even shorter if you take the boost panels. It was a shame that this was the final Tour City track in the Booster Course Pass. After all the waves, this is the one they chose to end it off on, and it was kind of bad in my opinion. I think the most frustrating part about this is that some tracks would have benefited greatly from starting off with a different variant instead of the first like Vancouver Velocity. Scratch that. If they would have done what they did to Madrid and did it to Vancouver Velocity in Wave 5, it would have ended off that wave on a really high note. Or even have Vancouver be the final city track. I don't know. I probably just need someone who's really passionate about how good Madrid is to convince me it's good. Because I would rather play on 3DS Rosalina Ice World than Madrid Drive. Honestly, this track is surprisingly good to me. I like the half pipes they added before the late. You can even use these half pipes to skip over the ice on later laps. Then the ending shortcut is cool, I guess. Even with the new features, it's still a good track from 7 I like a lot for some reason. I think my least favorite part about the track is the music. I prefer the more calming original one compared to the more upbeat one in the remake. At least I like SNES Bowser's Castle 3's music way more than the original. I mean, the entire track as a whole is just better than the original. Just the level of detail on every inch of this track is just insane. It was even one of the 2 tracks to actually use anti-gravity this wave. This track pretty much rivals any base game retro. They literally could have slid this into the original 8 roster of retros, and I bet no one would bat an eye. Just overall, the track is just amazing. Just like Weave Rainbow Road. I don't even think I need to explain why this track is amazing. This is literally the perfect way to end off the DLC. Amazing music, crazy good layout, simply a fun track, pretty good graphics, and the classic that was, and always still will be, one of the best Rainbow Roads of all time. They even took care of the little things like the star cannon sound effect and turning into a fireball if you fall off the track. I know I've said this already, but I'll say it again. This track is just simply an amazing and a perfect end to this roller coaster of a DLC. And that, my friends, is the Booster Course Pass. What an incredible ride. I think if I had to rank every wave, I would start with Wave 1 at number 6, then moving on to Wave 5 at number 5, because it honestly wasn't really good in my opinion, and I guess the characters were cool, but I only used them anyway. Over to Wave 2 at number 4, even if it's the same graphically compared to Wave 1, it somehow looked a little better, and they also had Waluigi Pinball. Wave 3 will be at number 3. I think the custom items were the best thing they added, and all the tracks here were pretty good other than the city tracks. Wave 4 will be at number 2. Pretty much every single track was amazing or good at worst. Honestly, Wave 6 is at number 1. I don't think I even need to explain why. It feels so surreal knowing that this DLC that I've been obsessing about for the past year now is over. This thing that so many others like me also obsess about is now over. It's crazy to think that 2 years ago, we thought this DLC would be nothing remarkable, to be one of the most celebrated things every time a new wave is announced. We went from some of the worst and boring tracks to some of the most amazing tracks the series had to offer. Even if this DLC ruined some beloved fan favorites, it brought some amazing tracks to the game and made some tracks get another chance in the spotlight and not stuck on a dying mobile game. Because that's the real winner here, Mario Kart Tour. Even if 14 slots were taken by city tracks, most of which were received as boring and unnecessary, I'm happy knowing that the work that these developers put time and effort into will be preserved forever. And that doesn't apply just for the city courses, it goes for both the Nitros and Retros that were in this DLC. Well, except for Piranha Plant Pipeline, but hopefully it's just in the next game. The Booster Course Pass was also personal to me when I got it around Wave 2. It got me super invested into Mario Kart, and I got back into Tour and it was able to inspire me to play 7 for the first time, all thanks to the Booster Course Pass. My friend group now knows me as the Mario Kart person who only talks about Mario Kart, which I guess isn't wrong if you watch this video all the way to the end. But still, this DLC made me grow a newfound love for the series that may as well stick with me for the rest of my life. Honestly, even a newfound love for Nintendo as a company. I do have to pay a massive respect to Nintendo for keeping Mario Kart 8 alive for almost 10 years at this point. Keeping a game alive for this long, especially something that Mario Kart that needs to adapt with the times to continue its lifespan, is extremely impressive. While older Mario Karts are still timeless and still have players playing it all the time, there's nothing quite like 8 with actual support from Nintendo all the way through, from just past the birth of the Wii U to the death of the Switch. Honestly, wouldn't be surprised if the next Mario Kart game gets bundled with this or something, possibly even boosting 8's lifespan. Because even if the title doesn't say so, this is pretty much Mario Kart Ultimate, just needing only a handful of courses to remake all the good courses in the series. Or, what even is the point of making another Mario Kart game? All we need is a handful of courses from past games, some new characters, some new tracks, maybe a new mode or two, just slap into Mario Kart 8. Because how can you possibly top this game other than making the next game Mario Kart 8? The BCP completely changes how the next Mario Kart game will be. We can't go back to the good old days with 16 Nitros and 16 Retros when 8 had 96 tracks. All I'm saying is, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe may have an even longer lifespan. I think one of my favorite things about Wave 6 is the credits. It's a bit weird that they chose plywood for the background, but I do like the stickers and the videos on the side using the Wave announcement videos, as those are one of the main focal points of the entire DLC. It's a very neat send-off with everything coming together to make a pretty good credit scene. The music was pretty good throughout, and it was a pretty good experience overall. However, I think it has a deeper meaning than this. Almost all the tracks used in the credits were from Tour, except for a Toad Circuit motif and the Super Mario Kart credits song. Considering that the entire DLC probably wouldn't exist without Tour and its development team, it's fair to say that most of the songs from here played, even if not all of them were amazing. Speaking of Toad Circuit, however, Wave 1 had the most amount of tracks played in the credits song, those being Tokyo Lure, Ninja Hideaway, and the Toad Circuit motif. It's almost like the developers are saying, thanks for giving us a chance, because I feel like we did. We all knew that Wave 1 wasn't as good as it could have been, but we gave them another chance, and that's all it took to make this one of the best things to ever happen to Mario Kart history. So I want to say to Nintendo, on behalf of all of us probably, thank you for making the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass DLC. from Tour Paris Promenade to Wee Rainbow Road.